And we are back for part 2. As always, we're on SoundCloud and iTunes, all that good stuff. If you're a fan of the podcast, then consider supporting us on Patreon for more podcast exclusives. I'll leave a link in the description below for all of those, as well as Supercuts Delight's original abandoned plotline video, and part 1 if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, so Preston, 22 is Dorne being Dany's ally. After Ellaria dies, Dorne kind of just fades away into dust. It's mentioned briefly in Season 8, but never shows up for the Battle of King's Landing, and is only seen during the council to elect a new king. So basically, Dorne being a drop plotline has been a thing ever since Season 5. And
yeah, absolutely.
I gotta agree with this one.
No, I agree.
Because Dorne was supposed to show up to the battle, but a good chunk of their armies is kind of destroyed when they're on the ships.
Sure. I mean, this is, but it's the double standard, right? Like one group of Dorne's forces are destroyed on the ships. Fine, I can accept that. But why does everybody else get to respawn their forces and have them come back, especially the North? You
got a point there. What was the joke that the North respawns people for every major battle?
Exactly. So I, to say they all drowned on the ships, nah, that's not fair, because there were Tyrell forces on those ships, and yet the Tyrell forces appeared again when Jaime had to fight them at Highgarden. The Dorne plot was definitely dropped. There was such a bad reaction to the Sand Snakes that they decided to just end it, and it was really stupid because once you introduce it, you have to resolve it. I don't care if the Sand Snakes were horrible. Once you introduce them, you can't just kill them off. They're important, So that was definitely a horrible dropped plot.
My headcanon for this is since Ellaria took every single one of Oberyn's daughters with her. And herself aboard those ships, and they're all gone. There was no leader in place for when it really mattered, and Dorne was just in disarray. So they couldn't have sent reinforcements while the entire country was trying to figure out, who do we follow?
Yeah. Of course, another dropped plot is Oberyn specifically says in the show that he has 8 daughters, just like in the book. Of course, they don't. We never see more than 3 daughters, but oh well.
There it is.
Well. The other 5 daughters are somewhere, but okay.
23 is the Dothraki disappear after Dany's death. Basically, he's saying here how the Dothraki kind of get fucked up during the Battle of Winterfell, of course. And at one point in episode 4, Grey Worm says half are gone. Yeah. And then when Dany is killed by Jon, they kind of just fuck off. Now, this is a point you've made several times. Aren't they supposed to avenge their Cal's death?
They are. I mean, obviously, that point isn't introduced in the show. Yeah, that point isn't introduced in the show. And I would have said that that would be a really great argument for why Jon can't return to Westeros. That once Grey Worm leaves, Grey Worm leaving is really stupid. And because he's not leaving any assurance that Jon Snow will remain in exile, which was one of his demands. And especially when the North is right there, and his sister is running Winterfell, and his brother is running the rest of the kingdom. Why would they not let Jon back? And my argument was, well, if they left the Dothraki in Westeros, they would all kill Jon if he came back.
But the combined armies of the Dothraki and the Unsullied are no match numerically for the combined armies of Westeros that are still there.
Sure, but you could then argue that there's just not that many of the North. The problem is they respawned the North again, and they make some statement that there's 10,000 Northmen outside of King's Landing. And I'm like, where did those guys come from? What? My God. So, I mean, the way I would have done it is at the end, there's many Dothraki still left in Westeros. They're taken on to people, they marry to them to daughters, they make them lords, all the things. People are like, oh, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. You can.
Isn't that what they kind of are doing with the Wildlings in the books?
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, one of the big things that the book kind of makes a joke of is that all of these stories about people being wild and unruly are bullshit. That actually everybody's civilized. Everybody plays by, complicated social rules. No one is just wild, which is, it's basic racism to claim that like a Dothraki couldn't suddenly farm and like learn the laws of Westeros. Of course they can. They have their own laws themselves. So my argument was, oh sure, there's not enough labor because everybody's died in wars. So
Right.
there's plenty of daughters out there that need husbands. There's plenty of land out there that needs working. You could have just had the Dothraki be those people, and then they would simultaneously be the armies and be within the armies and ensure that Jon Snow never returned. But this is all my freaking, fan fiction. It didn't happen. But yeah, the Dothraki are a dropped plot. You see a couple walking at the port, but how are they getting home? What are they doing afterwards? We don't know.
Yeah, I haven't even. I'll have to ask Dragon Demands. Shout out to that guy. I have to ask him what happens because what he loves to do. I used to like doing this, and then I just stopped because I just didn't care anymore. After season 7, I used to love listening to the DVD Blu-ray commentaries.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they will clear that up. Like there was a moment, I think, in one of the episodes, one of the commentaries. I saw it on an article where I think Emilia Clarke asks them, "Does Drogon eat my dead body?" And they're like, "No, of course not." Oh.
Yeah, but it's so weird because if it's not on screen, it doesn't mean it. It's just it didn't happen. It's not canon or whatever. All of these alternate endings and deleted scenes that appear now in media, they're all very confusing because now I don't really know like what to think. Like, this is a real quick side thing, but did you know that in the original Office Space, like there was a scene in which they talk about his boss dying in the fire?
Oh.
Yeah. And if you actually look, like during the fire, his Porsche's there. And then, so the cut scene is them going, "Oh, are you going to Lumber's funeral?" And they all go, "Fuck no." And then they kind of walk off. And it's just, oh, his boss like burned up in the fire. Now, clearly, like when they put together this comedy, they were like, "Nah, that's pretty fucking dark and not that funny. Let's cut the scene." And it was cut for good reason. But now, like, if you're thinking about the plot of Office Space, like, what happens to the boss? Like, did he die in the fire? And am I supposed to think about that Porsche that's in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Or am I supposed to just assume that, he survived and, went on to be some middle manager somewhere else? Like, you don't know. And so it's odd. Like, does a deleted scene count? I don't know. But, I mean, we don't know what Drogon did with Dany's body. Who knows? He could have eaten it. Clue.
I know what you mean. This happens a lot with Star Wars. Certain things that should be, especially Rise of Skywalker, certain things that should be explained in the whole like movie are usually explained in the book. Like the opening planet that Kylo is on, being Mustafar, being explained in the official novel of the movie.
Right.
So I guess it's a shame Game of Thrones doesn't have its own. Wait a minute, it does. Wait a minute, it does. Number 24, Rickon's death is glossed over. Jon is the only person who really reacts to it, and they never really hold a funeral for him. That is true.
That is true. Nobody brings him up. Bran, Sansa, they all don't bring him up. I think there's even a line where Arya talks about the last of the Starks, and she's like, "Our father's gone, our mother's gone," and then she doesn't even mention Rickon. Maybe, I don't know.
Does she not mention Rickon? I don't remember.
I forget. I have to read, because I'm trying to think of like, that would be really horrible if she didn't. Like, because I think she mentions Maester Luwin.
Oh, shit. I really don't remember the kid from the books. The only thing I remember about Rickon is that he's in Skagos and Davos has to go grab him. What did Rickon do in the books that's incredibly significant? Is there anything he's done or?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's more about potential. So Rickon has more connection to his wolf than others. Like, I mean, not as much as Bran, but he, we never are in his head, but he also has been warging his wolf. But he hasn't been getting any instruction from anyone. So when Jojen kind of tells him, tells Bran, oh, you're going to lose yourself in your wolf. Well, Rickon doesn't have that instruction. So, the idea is that Rickon might be becoming very wild. The wolf might be taking over Rickon. But so far in the book, he's more of an object than a person himself. Like, the North is rising. There's a secret conspiracy to put Rickon back as Lord of Winterfell from Wyman Manderley. And Davos has to go find him. So Rickon becomes the MacGuffin. So he doesn't quite have his own agency yet, but there's a lot of potential there. In fact, there's arguments that all of the kind of prophecies and messages that the three-eyed raven, that the three-eyed crow has been sending out, and that Jojen has seen, he actually misinterpreted them, and they're actually all about Rickon.
Oh,
they're not about Bran.
That's kind of cool. In the show, there's a moment where Bran's like, "What are you doing? Go back to bed. Mom and Dad will be back soon." And he says, "No, they won't." So I guess that's because he had a nightmare. So I'm assuming the show was giving us hints that Rickon maybe be having those dreams that Bran gets.
Yeah, I mean, he was having them before. Arya and Jon were having them. So maybe around the same time as Jon was having. No, I guess he had those dreams. He had some good dreams. But the point is, he's powerful. He has all the elements that say he's powerful, and no one's been training him. No one like forced him into a coma, or like gave him psychotropic drugs. But I guess he was stuck in the crypts in the dark for a week, just like Bran. So his gift would have awoken, just like Bran's did. Mm-hmm. So he's far along in his development.
Number 25, Cersei being feared by the people of King's Landing. The people hating her as their new queen is never really brought up. Neither is the atrocities after she blows up the Great Sept. Real quick, so Rickon's death being glossed over, Rickon himself kind of being abandoned, plotline.
Yeah. I mean, they do their best to I don't know. I mean, they brought him back and they killed him off immediately, but you're right that his impact should have been more. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And as for Cersei being feared because she blew up the Sept, that's also kind of...
I would say that's a dropped plot. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're going to build up this whole faith militant thing, and you're going to have everyone in this kingdom be of a particular religion, and then you're just going to blow up the equivalent of their pope and their Vatican, and everyone's just going to be cool.
Yeah. That is like if she blamed it on Dany, which is something I would have done if I was in charge. Like I would have had them blame it on Dany because the fucking giant fire and all that stuff. So
right. Unfortunately, they had a Hot Pie scene where Hot Pie says, "Oh, Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor." Had he just said, like, they could have fixed it. Had he just said, "Oh, like agents of Daenerys blew up the Sept of Baelor," that would have fixed it all. You would have been like, "Oh,
wait,
geez.
Hot Pie said that in season 7?"
Yeah, so remember when Arya...
when she's like acts all weird, or like, yeah I know. I don't remember him saying that.
He says two things that are really weird. So he's like, oh, no, Jon Snow won the Battle of the Bastards. And everybody's like, oh, Battle of the Bastards is like the official name of the battle? Really?
Yeah, right?
Okay. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was he's like, oh, Cersei blew up the Sept of Baelor. Everybody was like, whoa. So people know that she blew it up.
Are you fucking... I don't remember this at all. I'm going to do that thing you always do where you just... real quick. He fucking says that? That's so random. I don't remember that at all. Where he informs her of recent events, notably the destruction of Baelor. And he goes, Arya must go up to Winterfell and Arya, blah, 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 blah. He tells her House Bolton was defeated by Jon Snow and his wildling army in the Battle of the Bastards. I need to watch the scene when we're done here. I don't remember this. Holy shit, that's the stupidest thing ever. How come I don't remember that? Okay, whatever. All right, so Cersei being feared for, all the stuff is, 26. Cersei wants Bronn to kill her brothers, but then hesitates when Tyrion's in front of her in episode 4 with the archers and the ballistas and just doesn't kill him. So I wouldn't say this is a drop plot, more like a contradiction.
Yeah, more of a contradiction, but also kind of understandable. I mean, it's one thing to send somebody off in the abstract, and it's another thing to do it when they're right there in front of you. I do wish there was a couple more, mentions about how like she can't kill her family as much as like as evil as she is, she still can't kill her family. She still has it's the same with it's the same with Tyrion. I like Danny makes one comment about how maybe he's secretly working for them, and that's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea that as fucked up as the Lannisters are, at the end of the day, they're still fucking Lannisters, and they still like got each other's backs. That's really as they've been through so much, and they hate each other, and they've done so much to each other, but at the same time, like, Tyrion can't kill Cersei and Cersei can't kill Tyrion. Like, that's a very interesting idea. I wish, they alluded to it a little more.
They did, actually. Remember in season 7 when Tyrion has a private conversation with Cersei? Cersei just has a moment where, like, the mountain can cut him down then and there, but she doesn't take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
And he breathes a sigh of relief. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and she couldn't do it when he's right there. He's standing right there in front of her. Sending Bronn, I mean, that was just a dumb plot. They should have just cut the Bronn thing. Like, it served no purpose.
Well, you need to show where Bronn goes. If he's not in King's Landing, where's he going to be?
Right, but I mean, everybody knows, like, that Bronn, the actor that played Bronn and the actor that played Cersei used to date, and so they continuing on, they could never be in the same scene together because they
That's
really
actually
don't
not
get
true.
along.
There's
No?
one scene I think they're in, unless they had a stand-in for Bronn. Season 3, episode 1, when Cersei goes to see Tyrion, she makes that comment about, oh, they said half your nose of it is gone. And she goes to Tyrion's room with 2 Kingsguard.
Yeah.
And they're outside, and Bronn goes, and he's about to fight him because he wants to get inside the room. And then the fight is stopped before it begins when she walks out and she passes Bronn, supposedly. Might be his double, might be her double, and there it is. So, I think that's the only scene.
See. Yeah. And what's really interesting is the 2 dated before Game of Thrones started. So I mean, I guess they had that one scene then. But at other times it's quite obvious, like when they have the dragon pit scene and Bronn is like, come on, Pod, let's leave for no reason at all. And you're like, okay. And then Cersei arrives. You're like, yeah. But yeah. But it's interesting that Lena Headey and Jeremy Flynn, like, Jerome Flynn.
Flynn
used to date, but this was long before Game of Thrones was on the air.
Number 27. This is something we mentioned briefly. I just find it hilarious that he put it in here. Jon just left Sam to die. Sam doesn't bring up how Jon just left him to die. It's that one scene in episode 3 where Jon runs back into Winterfell. The Night King's inside already. Yeah. And Sam is being overrun by whites. And he's like, he looks at Jon, and Jon looks back at him, and Jon's like, ugh. And Jon just fucking leaves him to die. So in episode 4, Sam's just completely cool with it and even offers to name his son Jon when his son comes.
I think that was a missed opportunity. I think that it would have been really powerful had Sam died, had Jon made a sacrifice. Like, I need to do something and I'm going to give up my best friend. I think that would have been really neat. But
I kind of find it inconsistent. Like, how the fuck is Sam even alive for 2 seconds as they swarm him? There's a scene in episode 3 where when the whites charge in there, they charge in there with such ferocity that, like, they punch an Unsullied person's head off.
Yeah, I mean, the whites are very inconsistent. Like, sometimes they're like these ravenous piranhas that just tear people apart instantaneously, you know? Right. And then other times, they're nothing. That Sam can be in a pile of whites and blood and bodies and being whimpering and being like, ah! Like, yeah, it's I'm laughing because I actually really like that scene.
You also like it when Jon's like running through the tunnel and the whites are falling down.
Yeah. I think
Very Sam
I think
Raimi-ish.
I thought the over the top like raining bodies. Like, how do you outdo Hardhome? How do you outdo the Battle of the Bastards? Well, you have bodies falling from the sky and piles of quivering whites and Sam Tarly in a pool of blood, like whimpering.
I just love the look he gives him.
Oh well.
This will piss you off. 28.
Okay.
The Night King. Jon leaving Sam to die. Not really an abandoned plot, just a thing that just happened.
Yeah, not that bad.
28. Night King leaving a mark on people he touches. He touches Arya, and she isn't marked from it, even after the battle. Also counts for a point where Arya forgets to be an assassin and charges at him screaming.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. Like, I would say that the Night King's abilities and what the mark was and why it allowed him to find Bran and go through all of those circles. I mean, it gets into the broader issue of the nature of the others and the nature of the Three-Eyed Raven and their connection and things like that were not fully flushed out. Why that mark would have worked and why the mark would have been he would have been able to find him. Yeah.
But I agree with him here. It should have left a mark on Arya even after she killed him. Even though the mark can't be used for anything now that he's dead, it should still, kind of like when Frodo got stabbed by the Nazgul in the first Lord of the Rings film. Even the stab wound bothers him going into the ending of the third film.
Yeah, and I just wish there was some sort of sacrifice. I mean, had Arya lost her arm or something after that battle, that would have been something, Because when you look at the book and you look at the sacrifices people make, like Tyrion losing his nose, and Jaime losing his hand and things like that, like real sacrifices are being made. People die. And in the show, Jon comes back from the dead and it's fine. Tyrion, like, not only does he not lose his nose, his scar kind of looks badass, Arya never gives up anything, it's just, it's too bad,
Well, it is. I would say the touch kind of is a little abandoned, but mostly what's abandoned is Arya forgetting to be an assassin and just charging at him screaming. She had the training for a long time, and
right. Yeah.
And they even reference, I think, in the beginning of season 8, where Arya like sneaks up on Jon and he's like, "I didn't even hear you coming." And it's like, But
yeah, I mean, it would have. Imagine if she had pulled a Walking Dead season 1 where they pretend to be, or this is actually in Shaun of the Dead too. Like, imagine if she had covered herself with the face of an other or face of a White Walker and was.
That would
just
be a
kind
little
of like,
funny because she's short.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That'd be a little ridiculous.
Not everybody has to be. She changes her height though, right? She was able to be Walder Frey.
Sitting down, I mean. 29. What did Podrick do to those girls? I think this is a gag one, because, 30. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I need some water. 30. Dany forgetting her tried and true offensive strategy in Yunkai and then later Meereen. Her strategy back then was to infiltrate cities in a stealthy way and take them down from the inside. Dany did not do this in King's Landing. I would say this is kind of a weird point, because I'll have to defend this point, at the same time go against it, right? Because she doesn't have this information because her advisors don't tell her about it, right? Varys and Tyrion both know of the secret entranceways, as does Davos, apparently, but they never disclose this information to her. But at the same time, Dany also doesn't say out loud that this is what she wants to do, even though she's done it twice already.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's up to her advisors to come up with the idea in the first place. But I'm back and forth on this one. I agree with it. They could have taken King's Landing from the inside, an inside force.
Right. Now, in the show, whose idea do they have for the sewers? Is it Do they make it Dario's?
I think they make it Dario's idea again.
Yeah.
Or Grey Worm's. Because doesn't he go inside?
Yeah, I mean, in the book, it's Brown Ben Plum's like idea, but I guess they make it Dario, and then you see them going in and freeing everybody from the inside. I guess it wouldn't really work because the Marine strategy is sneak in, free the slaves, and have the slaves open the gates and cause ruckus inside. With King's Landing, like, you don't have, like, the people inside are against Dany too. So you at least wouldn't have that. Now, being able to sneak in and do something, like assassinate Cersei, I guess, they should have tried that. I mean, what's the drop plot I think is bigger is that they have a fucking faceless man, like, on their side, and they don't use her.
Oh, that actually would have been cool. That actually would have been cool. But I think Jon would have been against it, though.
You'd be like, it's too dangerous. What are you talking about?
She killed the Night King, bro. I think she can handle it.
Yeah.
So abandoned plotline. I kind of just dumb.
Yeah, it's kind of just dumb. I wouldn't say that that's a plot line. Like it's not. There's nothing thematic to it. Like it's just a remarkable coincidence that somebody used the sewers at Marine and Casterly Rock. I'm not sure if we're supposed to connect those two things even, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. He did utilize it for Casterly Rock, but just Tyrion being stupid again, I guess.
But I don't even know. I don't think as viewers we're supposed to make that thematic connection. That right, they went through the sewers in Marine and now they're going through the sewers at Casterly Rock.
31. Ilyn Payne and Arya's kill list. He disappears after season 2. Her kill list is also kind of forgotten, but that is understandable considering everybody just dies anyway. Yeah, I don't think it's really forgotten. The actor for Ilyn Payne, the reason he just disappears is because the one thing I will commend Game of Thrones on, the show, is getting rid of the fat. There are a lot of extra characters in the books that are kind of unnecessary. Like you just mentioned, Brown Ben Plum. Cutting Ilyn Payne out is just cutting the fat. He was there for season 1 and 2. I think the actor gets cancer, so they leave him alone. But then he recovers from the cancer. But at the same time, they don't need Ilyn Payne anymore because, correct me if I'm wrong, in the books, when Jaime goes to the Riverlands, doesn't he take Ilyn Payne with him to train?
He does.
Right, so Bronn can just take that place. Because Bronn is just a fun character people want to see more of anyways. That's an excuse to keep Bronn in there. And as for her kill list, I mean, besides Melisandre, you have Ilyn Payne, who I guess my headcanon for Ilyn Payne is he's still there in the background as the king's executioner. But when Joffrey dies, Tommen kind of is a softer king, so he doesn't really have as much need for Ilyn Payne as Joffrey did. And when the High Sparrow kind of takes control of Tommen, he just sends Ilyn Payne home. So besides Melisandre, Cersei's still on it. I guess the Mountain's still on it, so that's 3 people. Joffrey died. Who else? Walder Frey. I think she had it, but she was just gonna go kill everybody anyways.
Yeah, I mean they mention the kill list at Winterfell the night before the big battle, and he just kind of because Beric Dondarrion was on the list. And
that's right. Beric was on the list.
And so he's like, wasn't he on your list? And she's like, used to be. They could have just added one more line. Like she's just like. If she should have just had one more line saying, "I got rid of that list. It was stupid." That would have been fine. Something that is simple as that, or I got rid of that list. There's more important things in the world, or so, just anything. It would have been fine, but they didn't. So it's a little bit of a dropped plot, I will say. The completion of the list, I think, is a bigger book plot than it is a show plot. A show plot, they just kind of phase it out. They realize that this isn't so important. And in the book, though, it's still the most recent chapter is about Arya still working on the list. So
right, 32. Nymeria and her pack. Not much of a point to this scene. The show brings her back and then shelves her again. I kind of agree on that. There really was no point in bringing back Nymeria. I wouldn't say it's a drop. I would say that that's actually the
the inverse of a dropped plot. I would say that a resolved plot that didn't need to be resolved.
Yeah, there was no point in bringing her back. It just, who cares?
So they brought Nymeria back, they resolved it, but no one was asking for that like resolution.
I think the original plan to bring back Nymeria was to have Nymeria have her wolf pack go up against the White Dragon. I think that's what I remember reading in an article, but they chose not to do it.
Like she comes out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden there's this wolf pack.
And there's this wolf pack going up against an undead dragon. Nah.
Yeah. I mean, what they could have had was like Arya awaken with a wolf, like real short scene. Arya awaken with a wolf dream of the wolf like seeing Ilyn Payne, the two attacking each other, and Ilyn Payne and Nymeria killing each other. Just like Robert in the Boar.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up in horror that Nymeria has died, but she at least completed her list. And maybe after that she decides the list is stupid. They could have done a lot, but...
Jesus Christ, okay. 33. Varys being a master spy, doing the opposite of a spy by telling everyone he's committing treason by wanting Jon Snow to be king. Yes, after season 4, Varys kind of is not really a spy master anymore. He's just kind of an advisor to everybody.
Well, everything changes about him, right? Like he no longer uses child slaves. He's no longer linked to Illyrio, who is a pro-slavery individual. They all of a sudden make him good when he is anything but, right?
Yeah, he was more like an ambiguous character coming in and out, trying to get Dany killed, but, I guess having his reasons still, and, doing Tywin's bidding and Cersei's bidding, and, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, because in the book, everybody looks at Varys's I do things for the realm as being ironic. Like, everyone's like, right. You do things for the realm. Like, no one believes him. No reader believes that Varys is doing it for the realm, or, in his mind, like the most draconian path to doing something for the realm. In the show, that it's earnest, like, no, he really cares about the people,
in the books, doesn't he kill Kevin Lannister because Kevin is doing such a good job at running the realm?
Yes. And keep in mind, in the book, he is using children with their tongues cut out and orders Illyrio to get more of the children. And Illyrio's the one that's like, it's so hard to get these kids, Like Varys is like, I need more. Varys is an evil douche. And if you, in season 1, keep in mind, he is undermining Ned. And leads to his actions partially lead to Ned's death. So, and he does try to murder Dany, assassinate a 16-year-old girl. All of these things are there.
Varys is an evil douche. My God.
Oh, yes. Well, it's debatable whether I actually wanted Dany to die, but whatever.
34. Varys' past is glossed over. The words he heard when he became a eunuch are never gone into. I don't think I don't think they need to go into this. It's just one of the reasons why I guess the reason they gave in season 3 for why he went against Stannis is because he hates magic. I get that, but at the same time, we don't really need to go into this.
In fact, I kind of think that, so the show is a little different than the book in that Varys finds and orders the magician to be brought to him, and he kills the magician. He tells the story of how he lost his nuts, and then he's got the magician right there, and then he kills him. He gets his revenge. That's not in the book, So, but him losing his nuts to some magician is, but you could, it's right there. Why Varys would be against, that's all you need. Right then and there about his nuts and the background and him hating Stannis. The plot is fulfilled. The problem is they bring it back. They bring it back with Kinvara. And then you're like, oh, now they've mentioned it twice. This must be important. No, it's not.
Would you say that's a nice addition that the show put in there, having Varys like open up like this little coffin and he's in there?
I think I think it's fine. No,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but the problem is again, if you're portraying evil Varys, like, but the problem is they all of a sudden made him a good guy. So I don't know. Like, it was a nice addition until they contradicted it by whitewashing him, like they did Tyrion.
35. Kinvara and the other Red Priests. No resolution on the Lord of Light religion. So yeah,
Yes.
the Lord of Light religion kind of just goes away. Last season, in season 7, Melisandre said she was going to go off and discuss the current situation about the Night King and all that stuff with her people. I expected several priests to come and be like a whole like thing. Only she comes, and that's it. So that is kind of dropped.
Yeah, I mean they brought it up in Volantis with the Asian priestess. They had Kinvara come. They had the entire they had Meereen become really pro Red God for no reason really, because in the end you find out that all the discord was being funded by Yunkai and Astapor. So you didn't even need the Red Priests to be part of it, but I don't know. It was very messy plot. They brought all these things up, and then it went nowhere. Like it had nothing in the end.
36. Letters Varys sent out informing all of the Westeros about Jon's true lineage, but none of the lords at the ending meeting ever bring it up.
Yeah, but Jon's going to the wall, I think, at that point, right?
No,
So,
they hadn't decided on that yet. I don't believe. They never really bring it up though. All the lords. I would argue like him being a true Targaryen. Did anybody at attendance even care about that? Especially after the whole Dany thing. I mean, I guess Dorne and the Greyjoys care, and the Tyrells are gone. Do the Stormlands care? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, if anything, they would want Gendry on the throne. But I guess in a sense, it contradicts Varys' assessment of the kingdom. But Varys' assessment of the kingdom could be wrong. Like he thinks that, and maybe they could have played into that. Because if you remember at the very beginning, Viserys thinks that the whole kingdom is going to rise for a Targaryen. Mm-hmm. He's convinced of this, and we're supposed to think Viserys is pathetic, that he's got all of these false hopes. In the book, we're kind of on the fence. Like, we're like, well, there might be some people. There might not, Like, go back, like, when you first read through Viserys' assessment, like, oh, the Greyjoys, the Dornish, the Tyrells, and you're just like, dude, they're not going to, for the Beggar King? Come on. But then later on, you're like, well, once you learn about these houses, you're like, maybe. I don't know. So it's kind of a big unknown. So would the kingdom really care about a Targaryen? Well, apparently they didn't. We have our final, at least in Game of Thrones, we have our final answer. Varys was as deluded as Viserys. The kingdom wasn't crying out for a Targaryen to come. They just didn't care.
That actually would have been pretty. That annoys me now. I would have liked that, like, as a thing that as though Varys thinks that everybody cares, but you find out maybe only 2 people care. Maybe
that would have been really funny had somebody brought it up at the small council, like Jon Snow is the rightful heir, and everyone being like, yeah, who cares? Like them laughing at it in the same way that they laughed at democracy. Like, who cares?
And not even that. Yara doesn't even give a fuck about the whole Targaryen thing. She was just allied with Dany. So she doesn't care about Dany being a Targaryen. She just liked Dany. Right.
She liked Dany because Dany promised her Ironborn independence, which then was forgotten about. That's a dropped plot. That's a big dropped plot because that was the entire Ironborn plot, was their independence movement.
Which should have been brought up when Sansa brought her thing up.
Absolutely. I mean, it was the whole goal of Balon, and then it was the whole goal of Yara. So yeah, no, that's really bad. But okay.
37. Your favorite part.
Okay.
Grey Worm was being very inconsistent with not taking Lannister prisoners, as they are the Queen's enemies, but he does take Jon prisoner. As we all know, Preston, it's not his decision to make.
Yeah, no, that's a completely. I wouldn't say a dropped plot, but an enormous plot hole. Like an enormous, like the largest and worst of plot holes. There's no reason that anyone should have taken Jon Snow alive.
I mean, the armies. Some people have argued, well, the Allied army does consist of 1/3 of Stark forces, but yeah, the other 2/3 are Dothraki and Unsullied, so they kind of got the numerical advantage there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that Grey Worm is, as I said, the effective dictator of Westeros at this point, and he just cedes all of his power.
I mean, you could argue that Davos stepped in on Jon's behalf, but then again, why would they listen to him?
Yeah. Like, who are you?
38. Cersei being manipulative and actually doing things that was a thing for many seasons, but in season 8 it all gets dropped to her just staring at things. This one I'm a little iffy on because yeah, he does have a point, but at the same time, what is Lena Headey really going to be doing? Like, she's already queen. She doesn't really have to manipulate. Her manipulation came because she really didn't have much power. So
yeah, I mean, you know, she's checkmated. Like, how are you supposed to do? You're like, you know, she should get out of it. No, I mean, she's checkmated. Like, all you can do is kind of go insane, I guess, at that point.
So it's not really a drop plot. 39, the Dothraki dying in the Battle of Winterfell. This one I don't really get that much because we already covered that briefly. Not all of them die. Apparently half are gone, according to Grey Worm. So
right, I think people get confused because, and they're confused a little rightfully so, in that when looking above and you see the Dothraki's lights go out, thematically you're supposed to be assuming that they're all dying at that point. Because as their light goes out, that's a metaphor for them going out, for them dying. But in fact, that we saw that many of them came back. So they weren't dying. It's just that their lights were going out. That was it. So it's more that the metaphor of the scene, which was clearly set up that way, just wasn't factually happening on the ground. So I mean, there's logically, yeah, lights can go out and Dothraki can run back. We see the Dothraki
we see some of them run back. Jorah comes back.
Yeah, Jorah comes back. Like, you know, that's Ghosts runs back. It's just that the metaphor, the theme of it is confusing because they were thematically trying to make a point and then they undid that point. So I get it, but no. I mean, plenty of Dothraki just came back. So we didn't see them die. We just saw their lights go out. So
number 40, the Scorpions being a threat, and then during Dany's assault on the Iron Fleet in episode 5, they're not a threat. That's kind of a weird. I mean,
yeah, not a dropped plot, just a bad contradiction.
Right, because to be fair, in episode 4, they catch Dany off guard. And then they catch Dany and Rhaegal off guard, and then Rhaegal gets killed, and then she comes at them, and they all fire at her, and they miss anyways. So I guess she's, boosted her strategy, or beefed up her strategy in episode 5 when she comes like directly from like the sun, and I guess they can't move it directly up.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a good point that essentially they sucker punched her, and that's not going to happen a second time, you know. So fair enough. You know, I think that's a fair argument that, you know, they sucker punched her. She wasn't paying attention. They were hiding, and then after that, she's like, no.
If anything, her not having scouts is the true drop plot, because she did scout ahead in season 3 when the Second Sons arrived to assist Yunkai. So
sure, and plus it's just stupid when you know Euron's fleet is out there. I mean,
they mentioned it in the scene like 3 minutes before.
Yeah, and Dragonstone is right there next to King's Landing. Like, why would you?
Two more. 41.
Okay.
What happens with Drogon and Dany's body? I think I just read an article recently. I keep saying this a lot. I do apologize, but things about the show are coming out as the show is done. I think the showrunner said that Drogon is taking Dany's body to Volantis.
But also, okay, having an ambiguous ending is not a dropped plot. You know, that's just, they wanted it to be ambiguous on what happens to her at the end. He flies off, and now we don't know, you know? That's not a dropped plot. It's just, they fly off.
If Drogon is intelligent enough to know what the Iron Throne represents and to burn it, maybe he's intelligent enough to want to bring her to like a Red Priest to resurrect her, since the Red Priests are firmly behind Dany.
Sure, or maybe to the middle of the Dothraki Sea to have his own little ceremony. Who knows? It does, you know. It does, like there's a million things that could happen, and we're supposed to wonder because it's an ambiguous ending. Like, and let it be ambiguous, you know. So it's that's not a dropped plot at all. No, that's just they just chose to have a certain ending.
Finally, 42. Bran not being able to be Lord of anything. Yeah, this one I'm a little iffy on as well, because if he can't be Lord of anything, but he can be Lord of Westeros, I guess.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, technically a king is a lord, but you could say he's a king, not above.
He's doing a thing? He's doing that fucking... okay. He's doing a thing? All right, cool.
Yeah, you know, but... yeah, I mean, yes, a king is just the top of the lord-vassal structure, and a king is a lord, but, you know, he's not the lord. It's like your thumb is a finger, but your fingers are fingers. So your thumb's not a finger, but it's a finger.
But not really a drop plot, just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, you know, he changed his mind.
So yeah, guys, that is it. Once again, I'll leave a link in the description below to Supercuts Delight, his channel, and he did a pretty good job. He was kind of funny in the entire video.
I think we came up with a few more dropped plots. That, like, for instance, Ironborn Independence. He never mentioned that, right?
No, I don't think he mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a huge drop plot.
For his part 2 video, definitely Ironborn Independence. But Preston, thank you for joining me on this one. This is something I've been wanting to do with you for a while now, where we just, because there are quite a few, and if we go into the entirety of, because I think he just kind of really covers the last couple of seasons, but there are a lot more drop plots in earlier seasons as well. I mean, I wouldn't argue the Lord's Declarant is much of a drop plot, but they kind of get introduced and nothing really goes down with that. I guess Robin Arryn grows up.
Or the other Dornish houses and their and things like that that are introduced. Yeah, Oberyn's other daughters. I mean, lots of little things.
Mm-hmm. But once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Preston, thank you for joining me. And we'll be back next time with more Fire and Blood. Don't worry, you haven't forgotten. Please stop bothering me. Oh, I promise we'll get to it. We'll get to... Oh, by the way, supposedly, whenever New Zealand Con goes down, George is going to have a copy of Winds of Winter there.
I mean...
Supposedly.
This is his previous claim, but come on. He's disappointed us before.
And he said that if he doesn't have it by the time he's at New Zealand Con, that we can grab him and imprison him until he finishes.
COVID-19 has already done it. It's just he's already imprisoned. So what are we gonna do?
We'll see what happens, guys. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.